And with Coach Andy Toole, I'm the play-by-play voice of the Robert Morris University Colonials, Chris Shovlin. We are here at the Monroeville location of Buffalo Wild Wings tonight. Coach Toole, congratulations on win number 20 as the Colonials continue to roll and also continue to keep their standing in first place in the Northeast Conference. But 20 wins in a season, that's a milestone.
Yeah, it's a terrific plateau for us to reach, and I think it's something that most programs, when they evaluate themselves during the course of the season, when you get to that 20-win mark, I think people really realize you've had, some success during the course of your season and been able to win some, games against some good teams. And, so it's a nice accomplishment for our team, our seniors, and our program. But I think our guys understand that hopefully there's some more wins in store as we come down the stretch here, and we want to try and play as many games as we can.
I know you have your eyes on your iPad tonight, and so do I, because there's a big game going on in suburban Providence, Rhode Island. The Bryant Bulldogs right now are playing Sacred Heart. And the reason we're watching this game so intently is, A, because Bryant is the next opponent. That's going to be on Thursday night as we have to go to Providence. And B, this is a makeup game of a game that was snowed out by the blizzard of Connecticut about a week and a half or so ago. So Bryant is trying to make up some room right now in the NEC.
Absolutely. Bryant is playing Sacred Heart, and Quinnipiac's also playing Central Connecticut. So those are two games that are abnormally on a Monday night, but have huge effects on the standings and where things might fall heading into the final weekend of the regular season. Sacred Heart is fighting for, a spot in the tournament. Bryant obviously is fighting to, be one game behind us in the win column, with them being our next opponent. And then Quinnipiac and Central are also fighting for their spots. So, two very, very important games being played right now as we speak, and I think it's the time of year where you have to turn your attention a little bit to standings and how teams are playing, because a team like Quinnipiac, for example, who's playing extraordinarily well right now, is a team that could get hot and really do some damage in the NEC tournament.
Of course, we're watching this game and of course, keeping an eye on the score of the other. But last night there was a game in the NEC too, and Wagner ended up edging Long Island. So that was also pivotal as far as Robert Morris's future plans are concerned.
There's no doubt about it. And, I think it was important from an aspect for us where, LIU got their 6th loss, putting them 2 games behind us in the loss column. But it was a wild game. It was a great game to watch. As a fan, as a coach, you're sitting there scratching your head saying, are we going to be able to keep pace with some of these guys? 94-92 was the final score. LIU was up 13 in the first half, 9-point lead at the half, and then all of a sudden Wagner takes a 10-point lead with 2 minutes to go, and the game gets tied with 10 seconds to go. So, absolutely a wild, crazy Sunday night game in the NEC, and I think it's going to be the same way that a lot of these tournament games are going to play out. As I talk to a lot of the coaches, week after week, everyone just says whatever 8 teams get in, then it's going to be a toss-up to see who wins it and what the matchups are. There's no predicting, hey, 1, 2, 3, and 4 are going to win, and then higher seeds are just going to continue to advance. I think that there's so much parity, and there's so many teams that are, can play and get hot in certain situations and against certain matchups that it's going to be unpredictable.
That said, your team has to keep on its toes at all times once this thing does start and once it heats up. And again, we can't forget about the fact that there are 2 more regular season games left that are really, really important coming up on the road.
Yeah, and that's why I was happy today. We had a really good practice and workout today, something that we talked about Saturday after our game against FDU, about making sure we had maybe our best week of preparation heading into these last 2 regular season games. And we've had some good weeks of preparation, throughout conference play. But we want to continue to try and keep that edge, keep that hunger, make sure that we stay sharp so that when we're playing games that mean the most, we can be possibly playing our best basketball. And so the guys came today with a really good attitude. We had a good workout for about 1 hour and 40 minutes, got a lot accomplished. We're able to really teach and maybe go over some finer points of offense, defense, press offense, things like that, that we think we're going to need coming down the stretch, in games that are probably going to be decided by a possession or 2.
It's the Andy Toole Radio Show. We are live on ESPN 970, and we are at Buffalo Wild Wings in Monroeville here in Wilkins Township. Chris Shovlin, the play-by-play voice of the Colonials. with head coach Andy Toole as we are on site here at Buffalo Wild Wings tonight. And coming up a little bit later in the show in our second half hour in our Buffalo Wild Wings guest segment, the boss, our athletic director, Dr. Craig Coleman, will be joining us, and we'll talk about his role as far as basketball is concerned, but also he's the head softball coach here, so we'll get to talk a little bit about being outdoors this night.
The boss, I thought you had Springsteen was hiding somewhere around here. That's my guy. I got a little excited, but, Dr. Coleman wears many, many hats on the campus of Robert Morris University, and, we'll try and maybe get inside his brain a little bit as he comes on the show tonight, which would be great.
And we'll remind our listeners out there in Radio Land here in Pittsburgh on ESPN 970 and also on iHeart.com. If you're listening to us on the World Wide Web, you can always tweet a question to Coach Toole using the hashtag AskToole. It's AskToole. Hashtag AskToole if you have a question for Andy Toole tonight. We do have a question that has been sent to us. We'll get to that in just a little bit. Right now, Coach Toole, let's go back to last week and talk about the two wins. A 77-65 win over Monmouth on Thursday night, followed up by an 89-46 win over Fairleigh Dickinson on Saturday night, senior night. Again, the win over Monmouth was your 19th in this season, 11th in the NEC. Tremendous performances from Lucky Jones, 19 points. Russell Johnson, 20 points in that game. And Carvel Anderson heated it up late for 14 points on the night.
Yeah, I think we knew going into that game how hard Monmouth was going to play, how they were going to really, really compete, the intensity that they were going to bring to the table. We talked about that in the pregame show. But I also, with Velton Jones being out, the lineup still with that nagging shoulder injury. There's always a little bit concern about ball handling. Monmouth's a team that loves to trap and pressure and kind of speed you up and make the game chaotic. And so, I was very happy with the way that we were able to handle their pressure. Anthony Myers in particular with 9 assists in that game, 6 rebounds in that game. And so I thought we had a lot of guys make, incredible contributions. Not just Lucky and Russell scoring the ball. Russell had 6 steals and 7 rebounds. I mean, you just talk about a full, complete floor game when you're involved in that much action. And so it was a great win, like all wins are. And Carvel came up and hit some really big shots down the stretch like we've seen during the course of this season. And he was able to find himself free again and thankfully able to knock some shots down to give us the space that we needed in order to hold on for the victory.
There's something I said to you after our game on Saturday night. It seems like Karan Williams starts the game off with a couple of big threes, and then you don't find him. And then all of a sudden, Carvel Anderson at the tail end of the game comes up with some big threes. And that's exactly the way it played out in both of those games.
Well, I think it's one of the first times, too, that we've been able to have the luxury of having two excellent shooters on the floor together. And so, early in games, obviously, Karan starts and Carvel comes off the bench, even though they both play the same amount of minutes. And, I'm not really someone who's concerned with starters and things like that. Sure. I think, the guys that finish the game are the guys that you really depend on. And we've had a variety of guys finish the games. We've had 10 starting lineups during the course of the year. And I just want guys that are going to go out and get us on the right foot in terms of effort and intensity. But it's nice when you have those two shooters, like I said, because now you make the defense have to make decisions. And if you want to take away one guy, well, there's a chance that someone else is going to be open. And if you want to take away that guy, well, we got somebody else that we can try and go to as well. And so those guys have really worked well together, complementing each other. I think it was, I think it's been really great for Karan because in the past couple of years, he's really had to shoulder that load as that outside threat. And I think as the season went on, he really wore down because the physicalness, the defenders were guarding him and things. And so I think, having Carvel come along, his minutes are down a little bit this year, his production's not, and his effectiveness isn't. And I think hopefully that will make us a stronger team here in the final weeks of the season.
Absolutely. Andy Toole is the head coach of the Robert Morris Colonials. You're listening to the Andy Toole Radio Show. We're live on ESPN 970 here in Pittsburgh, also on the World Wide Web at iHeartRadio. And, of course, we're on YouTube as well as we film these shows each and every week, and you can always go to YouTube and watch them over and over again as long as your heart desires.
Yeah, what else would you want to do with your spare time other than watch my radio show over and over and over? Obviously, Shove's, an excellent-looking radio announcer, and so I'm sure there's a lot of ladies out there that are checking out your...
People say face for radio and a voice for newspaper, right, Doc?
There you go.
Okay, all right, whatever the case. Anyway, we're here at Buffalo Wild Wings in Monroeville tonight as Coach Toole and I dissect the last week here in this first segment of the Andy Toole radio show. You talk about Anthony Myers-Pate, and obviously he's really had to pick up a lot of the luggage for Robert Morris with Belton Jones' absence. It was good to see Belton come back on Saturday night, but Anthony's really done a heck of a job.
He really has, and he got off to a little bit of a slow start as the year started out. He had an ankle injury, which was nagging for him, and it's funny. Ant is he's one of our hardest working guys. He's a joy to coach. I tell him all the time, if every year that I'm coaching I have a player that acts and works like he does, I'll at least have a little bit of sanity left, because you can tell Ant go and run through that wall, and he just says, "Gotcha, coach," and he tries to run through it as best he can. And so he's really a joy to coach. We love having him in the locker room. We love having him on the team. But he's a guy who's never really been banged up before, and so he was funny. He hurts his ankle and wasn't sure kind of how to handle that. It wasn't feeling 100%. He didn't feel as explosive. He didn't feel as quick. He didn't feel as active, and I think it really bothered him with his rhythm and his ability to make some of the plays that we know he's capable of. And that was about, after Christmas, I think he really started to feel healthy again, and you saw his play improve. And I think in the past 2 or 3 weeks, I think he's had some of his better games of the year. And not just from a shot making or scoring standpoint, just all around. I mean, his ability to guard, 2 weeks ago we go and play Sacred Heart, and he gets the assignment of Shane Gibson, who we know how difficult he is, and I thought he did a terrific job on him. 9 assists against Monmouth last Thursday night. Ant's a guy that is very important to our success as a program, and I'm glad that he's starting to make some of the plays that he is.
Actually, the whole team is really starting to come around right now. You could start, I don't know, from my side of the floor at least, I could start seeing things gel. I know you're much more critical than I, because you need to be in your capacity as head coach, and obviously you're looking at the little things and finding the little problems out there. But for all intents and purposes, I think the fans are seeing it in the stands too. The team is really starting to come together and play the way you want it to.
Well, I think our ball movement's been very good of late. I really do. I think that guys are understanding the time of year it is. Their urgency has been a little bit better, and their details have been better. We've talked about that all year long, that early in the year we weren't as detailed as we probably needed to be or should be. And as we've kind of come into this conference play, I think guys have really been reminded how important the details are. You talked about that LIU and Wagner game last night. That game was decided basically on an offensive rebound putback at the buzzer.
Right.
And now, so you're talking about 40 minutes of play, maybe 140 possessions during the course of the game, and the last play of the game, as Lateef Rivers has fallen out of bounds, nobody accounted for Ken Ortiz and his ability to rebound the ball. And now all of a sudden he gets a putback that has huge implications on each team's season. And to try and get that across to players is difficult. They think, oh, well, we'll always have another chance to make it up, or we'll have another chance to get the rebound, or you don't always get those opportunities. And so when they're sitting there right in front of you, you got to take advantage. And obviously that play was at the end of the game, but I'm sure as Coach Perry and Bashir Mason watched that game today on film, they found 30 or 40 other plays that were going on during that 40-minute game that led to the eventual ending. And sometimes a play that goes, the first or second play off the tip might be the deciding factor in a game. And so I think our details and our urgency have improved, and that's why you've seen some of our play improve.
It's the Andy Toole radio show on ESPN 970. Chris Shovlin with Coach Toole here at Buffalo Wild Wings in Monroeville tonight. Let's move on and talk a little bit about the Fairleigh Dickinson game. That was the most recent one Saturday night. Talk about guys really starting to feel that time of the year. And looking at the calendar, Mike McFadden stepped up 15 points. Big night for Mike. Russell Johnson, a double-double, 10 points and 11 rebounds. Belton Jones came back with a vengeance, had 20 points. He looked a little rusty ball handling wise in the first half, but I think he shook the rust off, and he's back to being Belton, at least close to being Belton again.
Yeah, I was making fun of him today, actually, for how he lost the ball a couple times early in the game. And, last week I was telling him, why don't you do some ball handling? You can do some ball handling. And he said, ball handling hurts a little bit. And I said, why don't you do some ball handling? You should do some ball handling. And so, fortunately, we can joke about it now. He loses after the, first or second play he was in there. He kind of lost the handle a little bit. And so I said this morning, I said, you sure you want to do some ball handling today when we go to practice? And so he started to laugh. He knew what I was talking about. But it was, it was a great effort overall as a team. it was nice because it was senior night, and I don't like senior night very much.
Yep.
I'd rather do like a senior picnic after everything's said and done, and you don't have to, do the all the emotional stuff before the game. And so, it was nice for Treadwell and Shane obviously to get a start, and Treadwell gets that first pass and gets fouled, and all of a sudden it's like the play starts going nuts, and
so did the radio announcer.
So yeah, and it was a neat moment for Tread, and I was worried if he was going to be able to contain his emotions, either shoot the ball about 4 feet short or shoot the ball through the backboard. He was so jacked up before the game.
But he got one of two.
He did. He got one of two, and he made the first. So,
yep.
He was able to kind of channel those emotions. But I think it's a great memory for both those guys, and a fitting send-off for our senior class.
I was trying to gauge, after talking with you many times about senior night and how you don't really like it because there are distractions. Let's face it. I was sitting there broadcasting the game trying to gauge what you were going through, and you're absolutely right. I mean, to a head coach who's trying to win a ball game, there were a lot of distractions because you had to shake hands, you had to stand there while the announcements were taking place, and it is meaningful, and obviously it's that special moment after 4 or in some cases 5 hard years of work that the players need to be recognized, but it is right before a pivotal ball game, and you're absolutely right.
Yeah, and we had and it's the way it should be. Russell and Velton and Treadwell and Shane, had family and family and friends in from out of town, and they're there for a couple games, and so as a head coach, you're worrying about their focus, and are they out having dinner with their family, and all of a sudden maybe not thinking about scouting report or whatever, and it really is a celebration for all the people that are coming to honor those guys, and so you want to make sure that your players, the guys that actually have to do the heavy lifting on Saturday night, are mature and they understand, hey, I got to get my rest, I got to make sure that I'm prepared for the game, and then before the game you're hugging everybody, and there's 8 minutes to go in the game, and the students are yelling at me to put Treadwell back in the game, and all those kinds of things. So,
but you did, and you got Treadwell and Shane Swigert both back into the ball game with about 5 minutes or so to go. So they each got about 6 minutes in the ball game.
Yeah, and it's all part of the territory. But I think from a coaching perspective, you tend to be concerned about everything whenever there's a distraction, especially when there's one. That can be, so emotional and so kind of, something that just tugs on your heartstrings.
Walk-ons and backups aside, what about your starters? Are you worried about them jacking the ball up from places they shouldn't be shooting?
Yeah, and then you're worried about even some of the guys that are now coming off the bench who haven't come off the bench and just kind of trying to find their rhythm. And I thought our guys did a great job with it, to be honest with you. Lucky Jones on Friday's practice mentioned to me that he really wanted Treadwell and Shane to start and was okay coming off the bench. And, he texted me on Sunday and said, Coach, I was really happy for the seniors and the way that they, kind of got to go out in their final regular season home game. And so, those kinds of things are nice. And those are the kind of things that, make all of the distractions and concerns by me ludicrous. But, it comes with the territory.
All right, senior night is behind you, Coach. We're going to continue talking about the season. And, of course, the games coming up this weekend. 2 big games in New England. One in Providence, Rhode Island against the Bryant Bulldogs. That'll be Thursday night. Another one on Saturday against Central Connecticut State. And we'll be in Hartford for that one. That's to come as our conversation continues. And, again, if you have a question, you can always tweet Coach Toole at #AskToole, AskToole on Twitter. I'm Chris Shovlin, the play-by-play voice of the Robert Morris University Colonials. We'll take this short time out. Back with more of the Andy Toole Radio Show next on ESPN 970. And with head coach Andy Toole, I'm Chris Shovlin, the play-by-play voice of the Robert Morris University Colonials. Robert Morris has to take on the Bryant Bulldogs in a big showdown atop the Northeast Conference this coming Thursday night. And it's a game that we've been waiting for a long time. Bryant stung you the first time around, Coach Toole, and I know you weren't very happy with the outcome of that ball game. And that was one of the first couple of games in the Northeast Conference season. You started out 0-2. You bounced back nicely, and obviously the team, I think, is playing better basketball, obviously, and it's a different ball club from what we saw in that opening weekend of conference play.
Yeah, absolutely, but I think take nothing away from Bryant and the job that they've done during the course of the season. I mean, I've said this numerous times now. They're a team that I really enjoy watching. When there's sometimes when you watch film and you see your opponent and you might not like the way that they play or, certain things about them. You just, you fight yourself to continue to watch and prepare. But Bryant's a team that I think really plays the right way, and they have guys that really buy into their roles. They excel in their roles. It seems like they're a team that really enjoys playing together. It seems like they do everything for their team, and me personally, that's the way I think the game should be played, and I think that's the way your thought process should work. And so they're a team that I enjoy playing, but I enjoy watching, I should say. But I do think we are a little bit of a different team than we were, 8 weeks ago. I think, for reasons that we've mentioned earlier on the show, just some of the detail and the urgency that you have to have. I think guys are, maybe, certain guys are playing better than they were 8 weeks ago. I think we're probably as healthy, if not healthier, than we were 8 weeks ago. And that's saying something because we've had some guys in and out of the lineup, all the way through this stretch. But, Thursday I anticipate is going to be a terrific atmosphere. Bryant's been drawing great crowds, great support from their student body. And so I think it's a game that will be enjoyable in terms of, a game that you want to play in as a player. One of the reasons that you go to winning programs or you want to be part of successful programs is because you get to play in games where there's so much on the line and there's great energy and great atmosphere, and that helps you create great memories, hopefully, if you can become successful in those kind of situations.
And we are keeping an eye on their game tonight because they are playing a home game against Sacred Heart. This is a game that was made up because of the snowstorm that hit Connecticut about a week and a half ago. They weren't able to play that game. They tried to get it in twice, but finally they scheduled it for this week. So they have 3 games this week. Obviously, the Colonials are off tonight, getting set to go to Bryant on Thursday night. When we saw them here at the Toole Center, we saw a 3-headed monster. Tell me how you plan to attack these guys this time and what you're going to need to do to stop them.
Well, Shub, I can't tell you how we're going to plan to attack these guys this time. I'm sure this is on YouTube. Well, this is on YouTube, right? They can go back and replay this. But we do. We have to try and limit. It's no secret. We have to try and limit Diami Starks and Alex Francis and Frankie Dobbs. Those 3 guys really hurt us. And we have to be able to, just limit some of the looks they got. Watching our first game earlier today, just some of the looks they got early in the game, you scratch your head at. It's just, some defensive breakdowns we had, some lack of communication that we had in certain situations where you're giving a guy, Starks a wide open 3-pointer with nobody within 4 or 5 feet of him. And we've talked enough times about how when shooters can get in a rhythm and they can see the ball go in the basket a few times, all of a sudden they get hot. And that's exactly what happened. Bryant had 13 3-pointers made in that game. They had an 18-point advantage on the free throw line against us just because I think we were a little bit behind in a lot of our defensive rotations and closeouts and things. And usually that's when you foul. When you're a little bit later, you're a step slower, your mind's not very sharp, that's usually when you try and reach out and grab somebody or you end up bumping somebody or somebody gets past you and now you have no choice but to, try and be physical to catch up. And, so not only is it going to be a game where we have to make sure that we're tight in our game plan, but our urgency and our focus have to be extremely at an extreme high level.
And that game was coming off a pretty good non-conference slate for Robert Morris, and I know that probably added to your disappointment, maybe disillusionment with the performance in that weekend, that opening weekend of conference play.
You put yourself in a tough spot when you drop your first 2 games at home in the league. It's hard enough to win games in your league. When you don't defend your home court, you're just making your life that much more difficult. Because now you got to go and steal a couple on the road, and we know how hard it is to win road games at any level in any conference in the country. And so if you don't take advantage of those opportunities in your own building, you're just going to make your life more difficult. And, we've talked at times, one of my frustrations with the team at times is their inconsistency. And so, unfortunately, we choose to learn the hard way from time to time. The first 2 games of the season, we definitely learned the hard way. The first 2 games of our conference season, we definitely learned the hard way. And I wish it wouldn't take such severe action sometimes for us to figure out that, there's a better way to prepare, or there's a better way to focus, or whatever the case might be. But, it's kind of the personality of who we are as a team. And, Bryant definitely came in and humbled us in our own building.
Now, when you go to the supermarket, you go to the produce aisle and grab a couple of oranges and start juggling, because that's what you've been doing all season long. I mean, you've had to juggle injury, you've had to juggle some emotional drama, you've had to juggle a lot of different things as head coach of the Colonials this year. And I'll go back to saying it, a basketball season is a marathon. It is not a sprint, and there's a lot that goes into it that people just don't see behind the scenes.
Yeah, for sure. Number one, I'm not allowed to go to the supermarket because I don't get half the stuff on the list because I'm not really paying attention. So Brooke doesn't allow me to do that. But yeah, it's hard. You know, it's hard, and that's why I think I was watching the Michigan State game yesterday, and they were talking about how Tom Izzo values a regular season championship so much. Now, at his level, the regular season champions go into the NCAA tournament regardless. Right. But I think there is something to be said about a team that wins their conference championship in the regular season, because it does. It shows, you know, an extended period of time where you played a consistent high level of basketball. And, you know, not that you take anything away from the conference championship, not that we wouldn't love to have, you know, a conference championship. But I think it does say something that we're competing for a regular season conference championship, especially, you know, starting the conference play 0-2.
Well, there are a lot of teams just trying to fight to get into the playoffs, but you're absolutely right. You have yourself poised to win a conference championship. It's easier said than done. You've got two important games. First one on Thursday night against Bryant, the second one on Saturday afternoon against Central Connecticut State, and they're going to be difficult games. There are no doubts about that.
And we haven't even discussed the Central game, and obviously, you know, Howie Dickerman and the job that he does. I don't care, you know, what they have going on. You know that they're going to be competing, or else they're not going to be making it back to the locker room with Howie. I mean, Howie does as good a job as anybody in our league. He's been doing it for longer than anybody in our league other than Dave Bike, but, you know, in terms of NEC play, you know, Howie is kind of the guy who sets the tone for the way that, you know, the game's played in this league, and his team is incredibly competitive, incredibly intense, and they're absolutely hard-nosed, and they're truly a team that takes on the personality of their head coach.
We'll talk about Central coming up in just a little bit. Right now, we're getting a whole bevy of questions from Twitter, so that's good news. As you're tuned to the Andy Toole radio show here on ESPN 970 in Pittsburgh, brought to you and staged live here at Buffalo Wild Wings in Monroeville tonight. Craig Coleman, the athletic director at Robert Morris University, will be our guest in our Buffalo Wild Wings guest segment coming up in just a little while as well. Coach Toole, let's go to Twitter. What is the best way for a high school or a younger player to get the attention of college coaches? This is from Kyle, who's in the audience here tonight.
Well, I think one of the things for younger players and for high school players, I think one of the ways to get attention of college coaches, especially, first of all, you got to figure out a way to be in front of college coaches, whether it's through playing with a good high school program, playing with an AAU program, maybe being at certain summer camps and things. So you got to kind of get where you think the coaches are going to be. And then once you have the opportunity to play in front of coaches, I think really playing the game the right way is so important. We see so many recruitable student athletes, or guys that presume they're going to be recruitable student athletes, who aren't giving maximum effort, or whose body language is terrible, or who they're at a 4-day camp and they're not listening to the coach that's coaching them that week at camp. You'd be shocked at the number of coaches that sit there and just cross kids' names off based on their attitude. And it's amazing how, you know, obviously everyone waxes nostalgic about when they played and things like that, but it just seems like there's more guys playing harder years past than there are now. And it's amazing when you see a kid taking charges, diving on the floor, making simple decisions, moving the ball, playing the game the right way, how it sticks out like a sore thumb. And I think that's really a way for people to impress college coaches, is play the game the way it's supposed to be played, play it with the right amount of respect that it deserves. And you'd be shocked if you can do that and have some skill with that. You'd be shocked at some of the people that might start calling.
Okay. From the Colonial Crazies, who are great fans on Twitter, what is your favorite memory from the big dance?
Well, the first time I ever came to Pittsburgh actually was because of the NCAA tournament, and we had our night before the game meal in the outfield at PNC Park when it was the Outback. That's where we had our meal, and we played at Mellon Arena, and we lost to Cal Berkeley by 7. And then my senior year, we played in Boston, and
Wait a minute, you played in that game?
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe I was at that game.
Were you?
That's amazing. Yeah.
I didn't. Hold on. I didn't jump out to you.
I've known you for 6 years, and I had no idea that you were. I never connected you with that game, but you were there, and I was sitting on press row.
Clearly, I didn't play very well.
That's okay. I'm not going to hold it against you.
And clearly, you're not going to try and say, "Oh no, you played well. Now I remember you." At least you could try and
because I can't remember.
Could you try and sell it a little bit, Shove?
But no, that's okay. Sorry to interrupt.
And then my senior year, we played in Boston, and we lost to Oklahoma State by, I think the game ended up losing by 13. And we were down 4 with 1:30 to go in the game. Both games we were down 1 at the half. And I would say one of the things that I remember from my experiences in the NCAA tournament was just some of the small stuff. You know, we practiced when I was in when we were in Boston. We practiced at Northeastern, and then we had to go to our NCAA practice at the Fleet Center, and got a police escort through the city of Boston. You know, with you know, motorcycles. You know, each corner of the bus, police car in front, police car in behind, full sirens. You know, flying through the streets, clearing all the cars out of the way.
You felt like the boss that night.
I did. I definitely did.
And I'm talking about Springsteen, not Coleman.
I know. Coleman got back at 4 in the morning last night. He wished he had a police escort back from Charlotte. But no, things like that I think are what you remember. Yeah. You know, people on the side of the street having no idea who we were, but stopping and looking and saying, "Wow, that must be something that's pretty important or is pretty special." You know, that kind of thing. Walking into the locker room and just having, you know, coolers and coolers of drinks and all that kind of stuff. Those are the things that are just a little bit different maybe than what we were used to at the time. And so those are the things that stick out. And I remember when we played in Boston, I got to go to the NCAA press conference, and Bob Ryan asked me a question. So that was a big deal for me. From the Boston Globe. And, you know, watching him on Sports Reporters on ESPN for years and years and years. So, you know, just kind of getting a glimpse of what it's like to be, you know, important, I think was pretty neat for all of us.
That's big stuff. There's no doubt about it. Those are great memories, too. Thank you for sharing. All right, we have another question from Twitter. And, by the way, you are tuned to the Andy Toole radio show. We're talking Robert Morris University basketball with the head coach of the Colonials, Andy Toole, on ESPN 970. And we are live at Buffalo Wild Wings in Monroeville tonight. This is a good question. Brooke might be interested in listening to your response to this, too. Being a new parent, do any of the lessons of coaching help you at home? This is from Molly on Twitter.
They're going to help me. I don't think they're helping me yet. You know, with a 4.5-month-old, it's not like we're having a lot of communication yet. So
he's communicating with you.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. I get similar reactions, though, from the 4-month-old and sometimes from some of our players when I get upset with them. Tears and sad faces. So I got that part down. But I think it definitely will going forward. I know Mike Burns, who has 2 young daughters, we've talked about it before, and just, you know, just the holding guys accountable each and every day and making them responsible for their actions and making sure that, you know, they're accepting the consequences of their actions, and making sure that they work hard every day. I think those are things that will definitely be pretty prominent in my household. And, you know, understanding that if you want to have success at things or you want to be good, whatever you know he ends up doing, you have to put a lot of work into it, and you gotta go and you got to attack it and really work at it. And I can already see, you know, just in dealing with our guys on a regular basis, how it's going to be such a positive, hopefully for me at home, in just dealing with, you know, my own son and kind of some of the trials and tribulations that come with being a parent.
Is he going to be a gym rat?
I don't know. Early on, I think he's not going to have much of a choice. He's already a gym rat. He's been at almost all of our games.
I was going to say, he hasn't missed a game, has he?
He hasn't missed a home game, that's for sure. And I don't think he's slept for any of the home games either. He's wide awake after the game. So he's definitely going to be exposed to it. Whether he decides that he likes it or not, it's going to be on him. But I'll tell you what, there's going to be something that he does, whether it's the piano, the guitar, basketball, baseball, soccer. He's going to have to find something that he does and kind of, you know, learn how to work within that, because I just think it's so important to, you know, have, not even if it's a passion, just something that you have to deal with outside of, you know, your regular school and your friends. Video games probably won't be much of an option for him. Brooke and I aren't big fans of those. Yeah. Especially since, you know, our guys are living on Call of Duty or 2K Live. That might be where I draw some parallels. But you know, he's going to have to do some stuff, and he's going to have to you know, be involved and be active in whatever it is he decides he wants to do.
Okay, and if it's basketball, he may fit in because he's almost as tall as you are right now. He's already taller than I am, and then again, most people are. All right, we have another question, Josh, on Twitter. Do you think that an NEC tournament title is within reach?
You know, I hope so. You know, I really do. I think there's a lot of teams in our league that feel that way, though. You know, and I think there's going to have to be a lot of things that go in our favor in order for us to, you know, hopefully win an NEC tournament title. You know, sometimes it's going to, you know, hopefully we can remain healthy. Hopefully we can, you know, play well, make shots, maybe get a little lucky from time to time. You know, I think back to the 2 title runs that we had when I was an assistant coach, you know, and we got some fortunate bounces in those games. And even in some of the NEC tournaments that we've played in the past 2 years with me as the head coach, you know, I remember that game at Quinnipiac where there was a free throw rebound and the ball went out of bounds right before Velton hit that game-winning shot. And, you know, probably could have gone either way, and it ended up going in our direction. Tommy Lopes tells me to this day that he swears it was the right call. He's our rough assigner, and I believe him. I'm not gonna argue with him. And so, you know, sometimes all those components kind of have to come together for you to be a championship team. But you know, I hope it's in reach. I hope we continue to work and push and try and improve. And we'll see what happens.
All right, we have a timeout that we owe for that we're going to get to here in just a second. We have a couple more tweeted questions coming our way, and also Craig Coleman, the athletic director at Robert Morris University, is our special guest tonight in our Buffalo Wild Wings guest segment. We're going to get to Craig coming up next. Right now, we'll take this time out. Again, we're talking Robert Morris basketball with the head coach of the Colonials, Andy Toole, here live at Buffalo Wild Wings in Monroeville. And we'll be back after these words on ESPN 970. And it's time for our guest in our Buffalo Wild Wings guest segment here tonight on the Andy Toole radio show on ESPN 970. And he is Dr. Craig Coleman, the Director of Athletics at Robert Morris University. And Andy, it's your chance to put Craig on the hot seat. I mean, we all report to Craig, but tonight this is your show.
It is the Andy Toole show, but I'm going to tread lightly. I'm not that foolish. I know my 1 hour a week to maybe get some shots in isn't going to be good. Craig, thanks for coming out. We appreciate it. Obviously, just started your season. Now, kind of getting into the swing of your non-conference season. Tell us a little bit about the team and what you guys have done so far.
Well, our softball team is a relatively young team. We're at any one time starting up to half of our lineup as freshmen, about 3/4 of our lineup freshmen and sophomores. I think we're going to be an exciting team if our freshmen can grow up quickly. We've got one of the best pitchers in the Eastern United States leading our squad, so I think we're going to be pretty good.
Great, and I know you had a interesting weekend this weekend, fighting some rain in North Carolina, and then not getting back till about 4 a.m. This morning. It sounds like some of our road trips, maybe we can kind of pool our influence together and get with Delamo to get that plane going that we've been talking about.
Yeah, that would be cool. I'll tell you, we did get back at 4 in the morning. My graduate assistant said, "Are you going to be on Andy's show tomorrow night?" I said, "Yeah." She says, "Well, don't say anything stupid because when you're sleep deprived, who knows what you're going to say. So I'm going to try real hard not to say anything too stupid today."
There's no doubt about it. And I think, one of the things that we've discussed in the past is obviously your background in the medical field and how you don't believe that you can do either of your jobs, softball coach or athletic director, without a medical degree. Tell the people at home a little bit how you've balanced all of those different hats that you wear and, kind of find time to do everything.
Well, it's not been easy. I've never really coached full-time in my life. I've always done that as sort of a second job, whether I was a physician at UPMC specializing in child and adolescent psychiatry, or whether I was now as the athletic director the last 8 years or so. It's coaching is my therapy. It's something I could never give up. I'm sure you can identify with that. It gets in your blood, and you just can't stop. But I couldn't do it without outstanding people working with me and for me, on both sides of the fence, both with my primary position as well as on my coaching staff.
Craig, this has been a passion of yours for a long, long time. I know you have been a great sports fan, and you two share a bond in the fact that you both attended the University of Pennsylvania. And I know way back when you were actually a play-by-play announcer there on the Penn TV service that serves the campus. But a lot of folks are, probably wondering, how do you go from child psychiatry into being a director of athletics? What drove you in that direction?
Well, I was doing a lot of administrative work at the hospital at the time, and unfortunately our previous athletic director passed away pretty suddenly after she was diagnosed with cancer. And the president of the university at the time approached me about applying for the job, and I thought, well, this is an interesting career change. I do know a little bit about managing budgets and managing people and so on, but I thought that this would be a challenge, and it was a challenge. It's something I'm glad I did. I have never looked back.
I have to ask you, though, have your skills as a child psychiatrist transferred into working with coaches and student athletes?
As Andy alluded to, I don't know how people do this job without those skills. I feel like I am doing either group therapy or family therapy on a daily basis.
And I think it's more with the coaches actually than most of the athletes. I think trying to keep the coaches at bay is more difficult than the players.
I have tremendous respect for my coaches. I think that they are under an incredible amount of pressure. I often say to folks who don't understand the coaching profession, I ask them how often people write in the newspaper about how they did their job. And with my coaches, they are written about on a daily basis. Every single task they perform is written about in the newspaper, and there aren't other people that really are subject to that kind of scrutiny. So I totally understand the pressures of being a coach, particularly at the Division I level. And since I'm used to dealing with some pretty crazy behavior from my former patients, what my coaches present to me is pretty minor compared to that.
Craig, talk a little bit about, I know, the NEC this year as a conference has gone through some changes with Monmouth and Quinnipiac, opting to leave the league after this season. And I know that you're heavily involved with not only, our league office, but President Delamo is also heavily involved with the league office. Talk a little bit about the future of the NEC and where you kind of see things going. Do we add teams? Do we stay where we're at? Is there any discussions that you can let, people at home into about the future of the Northeast Conference?
Sure. I think that with the departure of 2 schools from the conference, we're down to 10 teams. There are a lot of conferences that would kill to have 10 teams. Mm-hmm. While nobody ever wants to see a school depart from a conference, we are part of a landscape that is constantly evolving and changing, and I think that instability is going to be the name of the game for at least the next several years. Much of this is being driven by football contracts at the highest level of Division I, but it really is being driven by basketball at our level. I think that our conference is still in good shape. I think we will always be on the lookout for other schools that may want to take the opportunity to join our conference. I think that the 10 schools that we have remaining in the conference are pretty solid. So I think we're in okay shape.
Good. And I think one of the things that we've discussed in the past is, fortunately we've been able to be in the last 4 conference championship games. I believe 3 of those 4, or maybe 4 of those 4, you've been traveling during spring break for softball. Mm-hmm. And you have some different things that you do watching those games on your own. Could you share with us a little bit how you view those championship games and the state that you're in?
We have, when I've been on the road during those games, I can remember one occasion where we were on an airplane and we were using Wi-Fi, and we had our entire traveling party of 25 people or so shrieking and screaming on the plane. We were reprimanded on several occasions by the stewardesses that we were making too much noise, and then other people started yelling at the stewardesses to be quiet because they were enjoying the game as well. We have at times taken up refuge in other restaurants. In fact, once at a Buffalo Wild Wings,
of course,
where we watched the game and really turned the entire restaurant into an RMU cheering section. There was one year where I was able to, in spite of traveling, get to the conference championship game. One of the years that we played at Quinnipiac, we actually, I was in Orlando with our softball team. We played a doubleheader that began at 9 in the morning, caught a 3 p.m. flight, got to the arena just in time for tip-off. We won the conference championship game, celebrated, got a 6 a.m. flight back the next morning. It was back on the ball field at 11 o'clock for a doubleheader. So,
well worth the trip.
It's a little crazy sometimes, but whether I am able to be there in person or not, we still enjoy those games, and we cheer hard.
And my final question for you, Dr. Coleman, is what is the deal you've made with your team if they go to the NCAA tournament? What are you going to allow them to listen to?
Oh, wow. I can't believe you're actually going to ask me that question. In my distant past, I was very good friends with a rap producer, and actually produced a rap myself that I wrote.
Wait a minute.
I wrote and performed, and it's something that actually Whammo, back when Whammo existed, tried to play on the radio, and I asked them not to play it.
Intelligently, yeah.
And they didn't. It was one of my better career decisions. One of my worst career decisions, however, was to tell my team that I would let them hear it if we advance to the NCAA tournament. So that part of my past will be revealed.
Oh,
hopefully.
I hope they make it.
We'll be rooting like crazy. And our team has actually been the grounds crew for the last 2 NEC softball games.
Oh, good.
2 years ago, we had some inclement weather. Last year wasn't too bad, but our guys became professionals at getting that tarp on and off the field and cheering for the softball team. So it was an interesting experience for them.
Well, Dr. Coleman, we appreciate you being in our Buffalo Wild Wings guest segment tonight. And I'm not saying this because you're sitting here, but every one of the coaches at Robert Morris University knows how important a great athletic director is, and you kind of let the coaches do the coaching. And there are a lot of institutions around the country where you read in the paper about the sports programs, and all you hear about is the AD. But this is a place where the coaches do the coaching, and you kind of stay out of the way and let them handle their job.
Well, my philosophy about really managing anything is my job is to hire the people who know their job the best, and then get out of the way. And as long as they're staying within the rules and within the ethics that we want in terms of treating our student athletes, let them do what they do. And if I've done a good enough job, and if we as a university, in terms of our searches for coaches, have done a good enough job, then the results will follow.
Okay, Coach, thank you. Athletic Director, thank you. Obviously, Coach Toole, we're running short on time, so we've got to squeeze a couple of last questions in here.
I'll be brief.
Kate on Twitter, I noticed you scream a lot at games. How do you keep from losing your voice?
It's a gift, I think. I think that's all I can say. I'm not really sure, but early in the year, I'll lose my voice once a year, usually the first week of practice, and then after that, it gets right back into shape, and I can continue screaming.
Second question from Twitter. This is from Aaron, and this is kind of a loaded question, Coach Toole. If RMU makes the big dance, what team would you want to face in the first round? Villanova by chance?
Can I say no comment?
You could say that.
Hopefully we can save that question for a few weeks from now, and then we can be our own bracketologists.
All right, we can hope that it does indeed come to fruition. All right, quick summarization on the Bryant game coming up and Central Connecticut State on Saturday. Big weekend for the Colonials.
Oh, absolutely huge. And anytime you go on the road, especially playing a team that's playing as well as Bryant and a team as tough as Central Connecticut State, you have to be playing very well in order to get those victories. And, you know, we had a good practice today, and we need 2 more good ones before we step on the floor on Thursday. And, you know, then we'll see what happens from there.
Health of the team right now?
I think guys are in pretty good shape mentally and physically.
Okay, and obviously they know the business at hand, and if they have to be reminded now, I kind of feel sorry for them.
There's no doubt. If they don't understand how important these games are, then they might never figure it out. But I like the demeanor of our guys the last couple of days, and if we need some help, we'll just send them over to Dr. Coleman's office, and he can kind of lay him on his couch and straighten him out.
And that is the Andy Toole Radio Show tonight, live from Buffalo Wild Wings in Monroeville. I'm Chris Shovlin on ESPN 970. Thanks for joining us.